Hi, this is Steph with Belladonna Dyes, and today we're going to make a cool spiral. Start by deciding where you want the center of your spiral to be, and this is a pretty big shirt, so I like to go about an inch or so along the underarm line. I feel like with these larger size shirts, if you go too far down on the belly button, it can kind of accentuate a larger size body. So I like to do them just a little bit up and off center. So I'm using the microwave splatter guard that I got from Amazon, and there is a link for it down below in the description box, along with everything else that I use for tie-dye, and I'm using a modified fork. And all that is a fork with two tines bent out of the way. I give the fork a little twist, and then with my opposite hand I create the pleats in the shirt, and I go as far as I can with the microwave splatter guard until I just can't go any further. And I want to point out, with these larger shirts, you don't want to put a lot of pressure on the center where the fork is, because you could potentially tear a hole in it. So that's why I'm using my opposite hand to create the pleats. The fork is just holding everything together. And then once I get it all spiraled up, I gently wiggle out the fork, and I'm going to use my stretched out favorite rubber bands because this shirt is rather large. Once I get a couple or few rubber bands on the shirt, I like to create a nice tight spiral. So I will go around and around, pulling on the loose tails, tucking them into the nearest rubber band. This way you have a nice tight spiral, so if you have to pick it up or move it, flip it, whatever, it's not going to fall apart on you. I ended up removing one of the rubber bands because I didn't want it in the way of the dye placement. And also, something to keep in mind, your ice barrier will help hold the spiral together. So I'm using the silicone cake molds for my ice barrier, and when I apply them, I like to go with the direction of the spiral. Next, using a washable marker, I mark out my pattern. Now this is not a necessary step, but it's something that I like to do. It helps me stay on track when I'm adding my dye. Now it's time for the fun part. We get to add the dye. And I'm doing something a little bit different with the dye placement, just playing with it a little bit. I did a liquid dye back around Thanksgiving that's somewhat similar to this, but I wanted to try it as an ice dye. So I first marked out my pattern by splitting the shirt into 3 pieces of pie, and I'm using the Nebula Navy just to divide those 3 pieces of pie. Next, I'm going in with a strong navy, and I'm going to add the additional colors. And as I work my way around the shirt, I'm going to take each piece of the pie individually as I go. So pay attention to how I'm doing the dye placement for this first piece of the pie. So now I have the first piece of the pie done, and I'm going to shift the colors over one spot. So if you remember, I started with the strong navy and went into the ice blue. Now I'm going to start with the ice blue. So for the final piece of the pie, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the first two and shift the color over one spot. So on the last piece of the pie, we started with ice blue. Now I'm going to be starting with the nightshade and just keep on working my way out from there. I'm also adding the dye rather heavy-handed for this one because I definitely do not want to have to flip it over. The pattern is just too intricate to try to repeat it on the back side. Next, give your project a quick little sprinkle of soda ash for good measure, and then add your ice. And I like to add enough ice to where it fills up the silicone cake molds. And then I let my project batch for 48 hours after the ice melts. It's still pretty cold here in Oregon, so I want to make sure that I have the maximum vibrancy as possible. And also, with this particular shirt, I came back and checked it after the first layer of ice had melted and there was still a lot of undissolved dye, so I added a second layer of ice. This shirt ended up batching for about 4 days. I couldn't get to it, and that's completely fine. After 48 hours, there's not much going on, as we just learned with my previous tutorial with the spent muck water. Okay, so now it's time for the rinse out, and you want to start by using cold water, and that's going to rinse away any soda ash that might still be reacting within the fabric, and then increase your water up to hot and rinse until the water runs basically clear. From here, I take it to the washing machine, and I do however many hot water cycles it takes using Kirillon for that hot water to look basically clear. Once it's clear, I know that I'm ready for my final hot water cycle using Millsoft. And Millsoft is a professional fabric softener, and I get Kirillon and Millsoft both from Dharma Trading Company, and there are links for them down below in the description box. And then I put it in the dryer and I'll iron it, and we'll come back and we'll see the results. Well, here it is, guys. Here's our cool spiral ice dye after it's been washed and dried, and I like this shirt a lot. Maybe if there were contrasting colors, it might show the dye placement a little bit more, but you know, it kind of just looks like a regular spiral to me. But it's beautiful. I absolutely love the color combination. The request for this shirt was navy blues, and adding that nightshade gives that pop of purple, so it just gives a little bit of contrast. And I think the ice blue mixed with the nightshade is creating some of that lavender. I could be wrong, but I really do like the way the shirt turned out. So what do you guys think? Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, leave a thumbs up, and click the bell and set it to all. That way you get notified of future uploads. And remember, have fun tie-dyeing.